Alright, hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the organizing coordinator and water justice organizer here at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Thanks so much for joining us again today. Before we get started, as usual, I'd like to do a very brief land acknowledgement. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining in from different places, it's so important that we remind ourselves that we do gather on the unceded land of the indigenous peoples. I'm joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I am on the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. So if you are unsure of whose land you are on and you would like to find out, you can always visit native-land.ca to check it out and learn more. Last week actually marked uh, some of the hottest days on record since 1979. Specifically, last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, were recorded as the hottest days since 1979. According to an estimate by the University of Maine's Climate Reanalyzer, which compiles daily climate data from around the world. Climate change has already begun to totally disrupt historical weather patterns through changing rainfall, leading to increasing floods, landslides, and intensified droughts all throughout the world already. And the impacts of the climate crisis are already disproportionately affecting Black and Brown countries. And here in the United States, the climate crisis disproportionately impacts communities of color for certain. And extreme heat is just one of the ways that we are witnessing and feeling the climate crisis right in front of us. It is the deadliest impact of climate change, extreme heat, and it disproportionately harms people who live within areas that have what is termed as a urban heat island effect. A heat island effect is what occurs in communities where tree canopy and sparse and impervious surfaces like roads, blacktops, and cement are all dominant. So imagine your typical city structure, or rather just your rather typical urban environment. Many communities deal with this phenomenon of urban heat island effects. In suburban areas of Virginia with large trees and shaded parks are protected from the relentless summer heat that we've been experiencing, certainly as of late. However, our neighbors closest to highways and major roadways, near industrial zones typically, and these are also typically lower income areas, deal with deathly extreme heat. These heat waves are expected to happen more frequently and regularly, impacting communities of color the most, which is another burden that we've recognized communities of color having to bear, especially as we think about the other community impacts and burdens that these same communities also have to endure. And here at VIPL, Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, we definitely recognize that many of the global Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities are already experiencing the adverse effects of climate change that are absolutely worsened and exacerbated by things like urban heat island effect and the heat waves that come as a response to our changing climate, right? And here in Virginia, heat waves specifically are categorized as a period of 2 or more days in which there is high heat and humidity with temperatures over 90 degrees, according to Virginia Department of Emergency Management. Exposure to heat waves classified as an extreme weather event by the U.S. Global Change Research Program threatens community health and well-being, as well as institutional, economic, and social structures within a city. And I think this fun fact here is actually one of the things that people may not be aware of the most. And that fact is that heat is actually the top weather-related killer in the United States. And the impact is even stronger on those living in or by urban heat islands. I feel like heat is oftentimes extreme heat rather, one of the negative climate impacts that gets overlooked, that many communities are facing in real time right now and today, the consequences of what comes with those circumstances of extreme heat. And especially in those areas and those neighborhoods and regions of the state that are experiencing heat island effect. And we can see that happening across multiple regions throughout the state, including areas like Norfolk, here in Richmond, where we're based, and even in Roanoke, Virginia, which might be surprising to some. So, specifically here in Richmond, it has been proven through a study done by the Science Museum, along in partnership with a few others, a few years ago, that in Richmond, heat impacts certain neighborhoods more intensely than others. This is actually an issue of environmental justice, as we see that even to this day, these high levels of heat directly coincide with the historical mapping of redlining that was established under Jim Crow laws. So the Richmond Times Dispatch has actually also reported that Manchester, I'm hopeful that folks know about that area if you live in the area of Virginia, well, the city of Richmond, Manchester, that neighborhood is actually one of the hottest neighborhoods in the entire city, along with other neighborhoods like Scott's Addition, Jackson Ward, Monroe Ward, the Diamond District, and actually also parts of Virginia Commonwealth University. So these are just a few of the communities that are a part of the city's heat islands, where the temperatures are warmer than the majority of the surrounding areas here in the greater Richmond area. And according to mapping data, large swaths of Southside and the East End actually as well are also hotter than other areas in the city of Richmond. Although there are many factors that contribute to the locations of Richmond's heat islands, one of the largest contributors, of course, is definitely the lack of trees and shade that exists within these neighborhoods. So that's more on Richmond. And another example that we see in another region of the state over in Roanoke, actually, there are great circumstances of and examples of urban heat island effect that the neighborhoods there have been having to experience and endure as well. And it's actually worsening with the effects of climate change, right? With these increasingly hotter record breaking temperatures that we've seen even just this summer. And according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, Climate Explorer, Roanoke will experience higher temperatures with more intense rainfall events to follow. And in a period of official weather data extending from 1912 all the way to 2019, 9 of the 10 warmest summers for average daily low temperatures have occurred since 2005. And in July 2020, that was actually the warmest month on record for average daily low temperature at 70.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And August ended a record 19-day streak in which daily temperatures never dropped below 70 degrees Fahrenheit in Roanoke at all. So, and that was back in 2020. So we can only imagine what maybe the weather data is looking like now, right? As we've experienced some of these record-breaking temperatures just last week. So in Roanoke, we also, I think, typically, at least for me, not being from Roanoke or having visited Roanoke, I often think primarily of just rural Roanoke, lots of open space, open areas, right? But there is also an urban area within the region of Roanoke as well. There is a density of urban buildings, roads, and parking lots, coupled with a lack of tree canopy that just creates the perfect recipe for the heat island effect to occur. So that makes temperatures higher than in any outlying areas during the day and night. This causes increased energy consumption, of course, for the communities or the folks living within these communities, which also means higher power bills, elevated levels of air pollutants, and harmful ozone levels that have compromised human health and comfort, and impaired water quality. So we can see that these exact same things that are happening in Richmond, Virginia, are also happening in a very different region like Roanoke. And you can read and learn more about this actually within Roanoke's State of their Waters report that they created back in 2021. And I know that area is actually putting together their own plans for heat resiliency as in preparation for the adverse effects of climate change to continue in the coming years as we see record breaking temperatures continue to happen, right? So ultimately, it's very clear that exposure to heat waves and the heat island effect negatively impact the health and life expectancy of people within our communities because they have to, one, endure these dangerous heat levels that have already been proven multiple times over, can lead to heat exhaustion, um, people passing out due to heat, people not being able to afford proper AC necessarily all the time, which can also be very difficult to endure in an area like Richmond or in other urban areas like I just mentioned in Roanoke, as temperatures are increasingly getting worse, right? So these are all things that we must consider as we move through our future towards, just the climate realities that we're continuing to face. I know a few weeks ago we were able to come on here and even just talk about the fact that we were having to endure wildfire smoke and the realities of that that came with it. Things like headaches and folks dealing with asthma experiencing way harsher effects, right, and symptoms, and it goes hand in hand, hand in hand with something like the heat island effect, and we see similar effects and impacts happening as well with the heat island effect that we recognize with the wildfires, right? Uptakes in asthma and other respiratory related illnesses. Because it's definitely an irritant and exacerbates those health conditions, right? So, everyone this summer, please be safe out there and consider the ways that you can improve or at least advocate for the improvement of urban heat island effect in your area and across Richmond, the entire state of Virginia, and ultimately, hopefully, increase shade and canopy across the state as well, especially in these areas of urban heat islands. So, thank you all so much for tuning in today for this short episode of Environmental Justice Now, and I hope you learn a little bit more about heat waves and the urban heat island effect. We'll see you all same time, same place next week. And as usual, if you are interested in learning more about everything VIPL, what we're up to, and our ongoing initiatives and programs, you can always join as a supporter by clicking this link here. And we will see you all next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Environmental Justice Now. All right, have a great day, everyone. Bye.